Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of PUAN Alumni Voices. I'm your host, Nober Abbasi, and with me I have two very inspiring individuals. Both of them have been to the United States on U.S. government-funded exchange program. They are well-known faces in PUAN and have actively been involved in empowering women in their own capacity and professions. Without further ado, it's indeed an honor for me to introduce our guest for this episode. I'm proceeding from my immediate left. To my left, I have Miss Sana Mahmud. Sana Mahmud is the former captain of Pakistan national women's football team. She was twice named captain for both the first and second SAF Women Championships held in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, respectively. During her Fulbright program, she has conducted primary research on the impact of sport on the self-esteem of sportswomen in Pakistan, the findings of which were presented at an international sports in the Global South Conference held in Ohio, United States. She is involved with the Sport Development Foundation to promote the idea of sport for development and peace in Pakistan. Sana was also part of the U.S. Embassy's recently concluded grant, Right to Play, empowering girls through sport. So welcome to the show, Ms. Sana.
Thank you.
To her left, we have Dr. Feriyal Amal Aslam. Dr. Feriyal is a social cultural anthropologist, peace ambassador, and Bharatanatyam classical dancer by training. She is a recipient of prestigious Fulbright Scholarship and East-West Central Degree Fellowship for both her MA in anthropology and PhD in culture and performance. Her PhD project and upcoming book propose a soft power diplomacy approach using aesthetic and performative practices and people-to-people diplomacy to heal relationships between India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. She has over 2 decades of experience of teaching and research in development sector, and she was the head of Department of Development Studies at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Based in Indonesia since 2016, she continues to lecture, conduct workshops, perform her work through arts in universities, academic circles in Pakistan, Japan, Indonesia, Philippines, numerous parts of the United States as an independent writer and a scholar. Welcome to the show, Farah. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We greatly appreciate your support and time. Before we begin the conversation, I would quickly, like both of you to share, since both of you have been on Fulbright scholarship and pursued a degree in the United States. So I would like both of you to share your experience as an exchange participant in the US. What are some of the key lessons and knowledge or experiences that you had there that are, that uplifted you or polished your skill sets? So starting with Ms. Sana, please, over to you.
So thank you, Snowbird. Thank you for having me on the show as well, and for the kind introduction. So interestingly, I've been to 2 State Department funded programs, and one was a Sports Envoy program back in 2009 when I first became a member of the Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network. And that was an exchange program with my football team, and we got to see and experience how football was being played, or soccer was being played in the United States at various levels. So with toddlers, with university students, with college students, and with recreational clubs. And that was my first experience with how sport was also being used with children with special needs. So we went to a camp with autistic children. And from there on, I started thinking about sport as more than just a game. And then years down the line, I pursued research and studies in sport. And as you know, in Pakistan, I wasn't really getting that kind of opportunity. So luckily, on my Fulbright experience master's program, I pursued a degree in international development in sports and gender and development, and trying to see how sport could be used as more than just a competitive game, but rather a tool for social change and social development. And there, along with some of my peers, we helped create this football curriculum that we implemented in South America, Ecuador, where we used sport for the awareness of health and cleanliness and hygiene consciousness and awareness raising regarding a particular disease. So overall, for me, the experiences in the United States have been so eye-opening, and they've given me an opportunity to actually practice what I believe in and to learn more about the things that I feel strongly about. And given such great faculty, such good mentorship there, coupled with obviously great supportive people back in Pakistan, I'm able to continue working on the things that I learned.
Wow, that's an interesting, that's a wonderful way of concluding such an amazing journey that you had there. Over to Miss Dr. Faria. Dr. Feriyal, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Dr. Feriyal, could you please, briefly tell us about your experience as an exchange participant in the U.S.? What are some of the activities you participated there during your program, and if there's any unforgettable moment or experience that you would like to share with our audience?
Okay, thank you so much also for the introduction and the wonderful company. I'm so inspired. So, like Sana, I also I headed out actually in 2004 for pursuing my higher education in anthropology, because in those days there was no PhD in anthropology in Pakistan, and so I am really grateful for that opportunity to first go for my master's at the University of Hawaii at Manoa for a traditional social cultural anthropology program. I'm very passionate about that subject. And then, interestingly, I didn't realize that in Hawaii, one of the most diverse campuses in the U.S., and being affiliated with the East West Center over there, similar vision like the Fulbright Program, I was introduced to the power of cultural diplomacy through the arts, and then it was through my friends and my peers, and through learning different art forms while being at the traditional. What's the amazing thing about US is that you're in the program and then you can take these subjects like dance department, Asian studies department, and I did. I fully availed that, and it really brought me to introduce me to that there's a whole big world out there, and you can combine all of your interests. I'm a student of Maestro Indu Mitra since 2007, Pakistan legend, and I always thought my passion for dance, and there's this anthropology and development work that I do, and I never knew that it could all be brought together. There are programs out there that do that, and so my mentors in the US, my professors introduced me to the program, which I went on thanks to UCLA and Fulbright for sponsoring and making my dream. I went for my PhD right after my MA. I pursued my PhD in culture and performance. Very cutting edge program in the US, which is a marriage of performing arts, cultural studies, anthropology. So it brought all my worlds together. And then I learned there, and this is on the scholarship side, how you can look at very sensitive, controversial issues through using art and dance. I used as data. So I also learned to become a dance history scholar while doing my work and practice of which I now call my projects like Peace Through the Arts. I've had a chance with PUAN to also develop a workshop on that. So I don't know, in some highlights, there's so many in my time there, but really eye-opening for me, and I was telling Norbert earlier, was my experience, especially at UCLA, with meeting with Muslim Student Association. And UCLA is some of the biggest in the US, and they're called MSAs. Like really eye-opening. And I found this experience around the US that for me growing up, like Muslim here, like all these preconceived notions so many people have about, what's Islam in the US and that. And then meeting this generation of American Muslims who are really, really engaging with their religion, thinking about it, following it progressively, and like engaging would really change my mindset. So whenever I get a chance on coming back, I like to share about that, like what's that happening, this whole conversation. We can talk about it more later.
Excellent. Thank you for the warm, for walking us through your journey as an exchange participant in the US, and building on to the conversation. From November 25th to December 10th, Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network joined the international community to raise awareness and advocate for the elimination of all forms of gender-based violence. So our theme for our episode today evening is breaking barriers. We're here to sort of remind women and the men they work with how progress is made and how battle are won. So speaking of breaking barriers, with the time have been difficult in the past, but things are gradually changing nowadays. Today, not only more women are pursuing a quality education, but also working and have ventured into newer fields and have achieved greater heights. Be it Vanessa O'Brien, the first American woman who successfully submit K2, or Sharmeen Chennai, the first Pakistan to win an Academy Award. So, according to you, Sana, how do you see how things have changed for the better for you, and can you also shed light on some of the contributing factors that reinforced barriers or gender stereotypes for women?
So yes, positive first. Things really have improved from, I'll just give you a personal example, from when I started playing sport. I've been playing ever since I can remember, maybe professionally since 2007, and then before that in school as we got the chance. But there was so many problems when we started playing. We didn't have teams, we didn't have grounds, we didn't have coaches, we didn't have competition. So even when somebody like myself who was so crazy would get 5 or 6 girls together and say, okay, let's form a team, we didn't have a competition to compete in. All the competitions were for men. All the friendly games were for men. And you'd always have to sit out and just watch while the boys played. And now, 10 years later, if I count 2007, I see an increase in the number of teams just coming around and the number of competitions for girls. So when you have other people, like-minded people who are as interested as you, then you feel inspired, and people feel inspired to do something for them. So definitely, in terms of number of teams, interest, and even the way they play, the style of play is different. When we started, people just wanted us to learn the sport, but now people are adding more the finesse into the sport that it actually requires. So taking the game to an advanced level. So all of that changes once you introduce something. And I see it only going upwards from here. Sadly, however, with everything in Pakistan, sport has its own issues, not just for women, but for men also. Sport is such a neglected, like the arts, sports and art. I think we're perfect to be on the panel together because we can keep talking on and on about how neglected the both of us, our subjects are. And so with that regard, in everything, women are slightly more marginalized, just simply because of the issue of safe spaces, for instance. I always say that boys will grow up having a more active lifestyle and a more healthy body just because they're able to go run in the streets. But girls didn't grow up playing cricket in the streets. You might have one anomaly, but general practice is not to play in the streets like that. And so girls are even conscious of how they run. Mm-hmm. That in itself, I think, is one of the biggest barriers. Self-inhibiting behavior is a huge barrier. At Right to Play, where I work, we work with girls of all ages, adolescent girls, primary age girls, school girls. And the biggest problem is, even if we try to get them to play football, the first thing is getting them comfortable with their bodies. So they're not even okay with just running, and I'm sure you face that as a dancer as well. In our society, we try to limit girls' movements and limit and hinder how they express their bodies. And we are taught shame around the way that they look at their bodies. So I want girls to just move past that idea, those self-inhibiting beliefs, and that idea of if you express a certain way that it's somehow wrong. It's not. You can easily do that. You can be comfortable in your body and play a sport or do art and do dance, do all of that. And so I think our first barrier is in our minds, obviously strongly because of the society around us, and we can talk about that.
Interesting. So, Dr. Feriyal, as per your experience and knowledge, what do you think are the most contributing factors that reinforce barriers or gender stereotypes, or that sort of, define the social construct that we live in these days?
Mm-hmm. So yes, like Sana said, many similarities, yeah. In the issues around women's bodies. Yeah, and that's something that both of us, in sports or in performing arts, and a woman puts her body on stage, and there are all these similar issues and cultural mindsets and all that come around that. So what are the sort of reasons and how we can, I think because now, interestingly, for the last 2 years, I'm also, between Indonesia and at the biggest population of Muslims in the world, right? So I have this really interesting opportunity to compare. Here is a Muslim context, all practicing Muslims, women, and they have very different relationship with their bodies and with performing arts, with sports, than here. So I'm asking myself these questions. So one biggest that I can think of, like difference when I look at compared to Muslim countries and is education. We have a huge difference in the literacy rate in the two countries versus 40%, like, and then versus 95% literacy rate in a country like our neighbors in Bangladesh and also but Southeast Asia. Just talking about Muslim countries. So I feel that is a huge factor, and then we can talk more about that. But like when we're coming to changing mindsets and stuff, it is changing from childhood within education. I feel like from the childhood stage, and that would mean that the parents. Firstly, changing their mindset in school and home about how they look at what is supposed to be things that a girl does and a boy does, and that's where it all starts, right?
Yes.
Where you start already telling, telling you what to do and putting those boundaries and barriers around your mind.
Yeah.
At that early age.
Exactly, where choices are sort of influenced by society, family, or the surroundings.
Yes. So, and then if maybe we can talk later, but I feel like educating. Yes, we talk about educating women and all that, but the men, we really need to work on changing that and having men who are with us, with the women, and changing that. So like. My famous
men like snowbirds.
Men like you, snowbirds. So
thank you.
I love really saying. I know everyone says behind every great. Everyone knows that saying behind every great man is a great woman. Yes. But behind every successful woman is a very supportive brother, father. There is always this male figure who has fully supported her to encourage that. And some, that's so important.
I completely agree. And exactly, and since you initially said that when you wanted to learn sports, the perception of people who were supposed to teach you sports or any particular activity, their idea was that you wanted to learn and they wanted you to teach so you can learn, not you can pursue a professional career. So you being a sport athlete and Dr. Feriyal, you being a trained, I must say, professional Bharatanatyam dancer, quite unconventional fields for Pakistani women that are not really widely popular or acceptable by the majority of mainstream society. So first with Sana, how do you see the professional freedom for women in Pakistan? Do you feel that the choices are influenced by the patriarchy, culture, society, or Pakistani women are free to exercise their will? So what does?
I think with time I see a lot of change, but earlier, yes, it was. I think, well, for all of Pakistan. Once again, I like to start with. There are some problems that are for all of Pakistan, and then there are some problems that are just for women. So for all of Pakistan, initially it was just doctor and engineer. And I'm sure a majority of the men deal with that as well, right? So the poor men who want to be, God forbid, teachers or artists, they even suffer that stigma of not being a doctor or an engineer. I think society has progressed from there, and now we are opening new avenues. And within that, arts and even my field, development sector or philanthropy or the soft or the social sciences, relatively a new thing. For sport, overall, it's very difficult because of the monetary incentive or the lack of monetary incentive you get from something like that within the parameters of our country. Keeping all of those things in mind, the choices for women, I think that, like Dr. Feriyal mentioned, that choices for women are largely influenced by the supporting environment. So as a woman in Pakistan, you'll find very rare examples of somebody getting up and saying, I decided to do this. If she did decide to do this, then she must have a supportive father or must have a supportive mother or a brother who allowed her to do it. Even the children that we work with, every time you see a girl breaking barriers or doing something new, her story will always have, because my brother eventually got convinced, or because my father allowed me to do this. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's a reality in our society. And we need to understand that the whole family structure plays a very important role. So even if the society is against a certain thing that you have to do or want to do, if your family is supportive, you're able to make it. personal example is in front of you. I always give it to my parents for everything that they've done, and also that they never discriminated in how they raised. I was the first daughter. I have a younger sister, and then we had a brother, but years later. But for our parents, for the longest time, my sister and I, the two of us, were both their sons and their daughters. I was told to go walk to the market, buy something. I was told to go fill up the gas tank, go fix the car, and I was told to do other things. And I never really differentiated between what's a man's role and what's a woman's role. So I really think that it's the way, like you said, from an early age, how they raise you. And I do believe that if you have supportive people around you, you're able to do it. So my coaches, friends, and that impacts everything. So even if I want to do something, I'm not able to fully proceed with that decision unless I have that supportive environment. And we as supporters of women should make it our aim to create that supportive environment. So for some ladies, their family might not be supportive, but as a society, we should create that environment for them that they feel bold enough to take that step. So you can't do it alone.
So over to Dr. Feriyal.
Okay, so I think Sana said it very well, but I'll just add something since I've been talking about Indonesia, Pakistan, Muslim country, gender context, which is my current research interest too right now. I will just add this, that in addition to that, and absolutely, I have the same sort of story because I had this journalist dad way ahead of his times, and who always said, "Oh, we're two sisters and a brother," and he always said, "Girls can be prime minister, prime minister." So that always from day one, and then always following your heart. All three of us have followed. Like my mother's an actor, filmmaker, dance, anthropology, but there was this focus to follow your heart, whatever. So we had that very, very blessed, sort of environment at home. So I know that I'm very fortunate, and many people may not have that environment. So here I would like to say something, particularly with my sort of my research in Pakistan and looking at how a lot of, I know it's a very controversial topic of religion, people don't like to touch, but I always get into controversy. That's my interest. But and in a very sort of nice, artistic, aesthetic way, subtly dealing with very difficult topics. So what I have seen, and it's very interesting in Malaysia, and I told my students when I teach gender and sort of development issues, the Indonesian women, Malaysian women in particularly, they were not scholars, they didn't know Arabic. They said, look, there are these things, and people keep saying, this is not on your religion, it's not. We don't think so. We're going to study for ourselves what we understand, and we're going to, empower ourselves, and then we're going to, because we are practicing Muslims, and this doesn't feel right. So they did that study. I would say, especially in our context in Pakistan, where so much of religion gets pointed around to tell women and men, particularly women, what they should or should not do is just study and for yourself and ask us questions. And when you have that, especially for I'm talking for the Muslim, of course, but others can too. But in Pakistan's context, we're talking about that. And then you have this power. So knowledge is power, really. And then work with that. You can change your family. You can change your mindset. It's a lot of work, but you have to first work, get that knowledge.
To work your way up there.
I've seen it's really exciting for me to see in Indonesia. There's these women ulama, and they're really challenging the main ulama, and there's whole very exciting stuff going on. And there's a big lot of them, and they're getting together and they're saying, and some of them are very learned. It's not so, but they're finding their own answers.
Wow, that's really
I think I'm really inspired also to do. I believe that. I believe you have your own interpretations of religion, and you cannot be convinced by somebody else who studies it.
Yes. Yeah. So for I think for women in Pakistan, I feel this is some people may disagree with me. Don't want to engage. But I think this is the way for change here is for women to take that.
So building onto the same argument, while pursuing the professions you both pursued, did you ever feel any barrier? And if so, how did you encounter it? And if anyone who's watching us live or who is who wants to become a Bharatanatyam dancer or who wants to become an athlete, if there is a woman who's watching us live, what is the one advice you would give her? So there are like 2-3 questions, so I'll let you respond to each one of these.
Okay. So, as far as barriers are concerned, I always say, positive first, that family and friends, and I surrounded myself with a positive circle, so that was a good thing. But you will always have barriers from the society. And some people think it's not in our religion, it's not a good thing to do. Some people have an issue with the attire that we wear or the fact that we're running around in public. And I think all you need to do is remember, be sure in your heart of why you're doing what you're doing. So when, and I think that's true for anything. So when you are uncertain about something yourself, you will never be able to fully follow through with it. And I am crazy about it. So I followed my heart till where it allowed me, and luckily I was fortunate enough to be given that environment. I think if I had to give an example of small things, back in university, we had higher senior management who didn't think that it was important to skip 2 classes and go and play a game out of city, And I spent 2-3 hours in particular manager's room trying to convince him that this was important for the girls, that the girls had trained, I had brought a team together, they were excited, they deserved this tournament, and it was very important for them. They just said, no, this is just not allowed. Your parents aren't paying us fee to let you just go play. So this value of play and sport is so demeaned in our society. And then the girls start thinking as well, is this something bad? Are we not good at studies because we play sport? Because when I was in university, everybody was famous for, okay, if you don't do well in class, you're probably going to be outside. And it's about challenging those things and trying to prove that for yourself. I knew I wasn't stupid. The teachers thought I was, because they thought, oh, well, all she does is play. She'll never have a future, and that's it. But I never skipped class. I always attended class. I need to know how smart I am. I need to be sure of myself. So I think that self-awareness and certainty in what you're doing, and I'm not doing anything wrong, and I really think this is my right. And there's a couple of jokes I like telling people. The only time I've ever been late home is when I've been playing a game. So there used to be a park very close to my house, and I would be there like 12:30 at midnight playing basketball. It was like walking distance from my house. My parents would be calling, and my cell phone would be in my bag, and I'd get scolded for, why are you home so late? And I said, Mom, you should be lucky that you have a daughter who's staying out and all she's doing is playing a game of basketball with the neighborhood people. And I'm not doing anything else. So, it's just about why you do what you do. And remind yourself that if you're on that right path, then nothing can waver your determination. And along the way, just surround yourself with the positive people. Because there will be negative people, you don't need to go there. Just kind of eliminate that from your life.
Absolutely.
So we're to Dr.
It's such a pleasure. You should echoing in my heart,
And everything.
But so yes, absolutely, I agree. And the only thing I can add to that is, so what I have done, followed in my life is what I gift from my father, to follow my heart, and it can I say a dialogue? It's in Urdu.
Yeah, sure, you
so
can.
My father loved films, right? So Dilip Kumar's dialogue, he would always say, whenever I have to make a decision, he would say, Judge Raghunath, aapki man ki adalat ka kya faisla hai? So this is my father's favorite, and if I'll translate, what's the sort of answer of the court of your heart, yeah? Yeah, what is so for me, that is the journey, and I'm still in that journey right now, and I try my best to be respectful and mindful of others around me, but most important is being true to your heart. So apne man mein dood kar paaja surage zindagi. So that's if you try to be true to your heart, and then do the work that's required for that, I don't think you can go wrong. And then you've done your best. And as far as people are concerned, they always come around if you follow your heart.
I like that you said put the work in, because people just think it happens like this. You have to work hard.
Exactly. And moving further with the conversation, and this is perhaps the second last question that I have on the list. I'll begin with Sana. As you work and live in Pakistan and you play sports as well, do you think there's a huge focus on fixing the woman rather than fixing the system? In a sense that, a lot of times there are a lot of there are fragmentations of news in the media, or ill practices that sort of enforce that it's required to discipline a woman by the right holders or the duty bearers, which community or the state. So how do you see that, and what is the way out?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think that it's very true, because in just the workplace environment, there's a lot of that. She shouldn't have worn that, or there will always be that one woman in the office who dresses a certain way, so men treat her a certain way. But then there will be the other woman who may be in a more conservative attire, and she'll be treated differently. Neither of them have asked for a certain treatment. They've just been, it's just a preconceived notion of, oh, she wears that, so it's okay to joke with her like this. But she covers her head maybe, so let's not do this, so and so. And those are our ideas of what we think. I think that, first of all, my dress did not require for you to judge me immediately. And even if you did form a judgment in your mind about it, it definitely does not give you the right to show me actions that you think I deserve, right? And so I think in the workplace it's a very, very common thing. In sports, similarly, it's the same thing. So I think that women and men both should have the freedom to wear whatever they like, or behave a certain way. Obviously, we have certain limits. We know as educated individuals, I always talk about etiquette. Of course, everybody knows etiquette. You cannot wear what you wear to the beach in the office. You cannot wear, same as with a man, you cannot wear what you're wearing on the basketball court in somebody's drawing room. We should have basic etiquette of just general surroundings and keeping our culture in mind, keeping our religion in mind. But overall, people should not be judged on something like that. And I think in our society, we are starting to look, I would hope that sometimes we're progressing, but unfortunately, it saddens me sometimes because we tend to go towards materialistic things a lot. And so we demean things like intellect, or somebody's ability to hold a conversation. And based on those kind of notions where we put image and beauty and your attire up front and other things like intellect behind, then there's an issue with how we treat people. And similarly for women, we want to fix women. And same thing with if a woman tries to be very smart also. If she is an intelligent or headstrong woman, as I like to call it, or independent woman, there will eventually be something wrong with her. Everybody will be inspired by her. Everybody will say she's great, but there might be something wrong with her. I face that myself because I know there are a lot of men who come and say, oh, we're so inspired by you, or you've done this. But at the end of the day, they'll say, oh, well, we never wanted white like. Why? Because there's something right in, oh, that girl there is all right, but I don't want that in my home. I don't want my sister to be like this. I don't want my mother to be like this. I don't want my wife to be like this. Why? So there's this idea of fixing people, is that even when you sit afar and you appreciate, you still think there's something wrong with it. Oh, she got a PhD. Oh, she's a dancer. Oh, this is great, brilliant work. But no, not in my room. So that is another mindset that we have to kind of look past.
And Dr. Feriyal, since you initially touched the subject of keeping men involved, men and young boys involved in the process of absolute gender equality, according to you, what is the role of men in an understanding and supporting the idea of equality? And second to this, what advice would you give to young men, men and young boys out there, in supporting women and young girls in their community?
All right. So there's so much I could say on that, but I'll try to be short. So if I was to put it, advice for young men, Again, in the lines of things I've been saying earlier, and in particularly for young Muslims, man, simple, Prophet Muhammad, look at his life. See the amount of housework he used to do. I mean, look at our South Asian, unfortunately, and I compare it when I go to other countries, other Muslims, it's like very different. We are a very patriarchal society, unfortunately, and we need to, talk about these things. So, and especially to our boys, to our sons, to our brothers, at an early age, train them to both your sister and brother's education is as important. So both helping in the house is, housework is as important. Just like this is the example of no one less than Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So if I was to just in short say that one, and what was anything else you wanted me to put?
Yeah. So is there any? So just for final thoughts, is there any particular change that you want to see in Pakistani society? So begin with, then I can, proceed further.
In this particular respect about men?
Yes. In any particular change that you want to
Yes, I would really, the biggest, unfortunately, thing that bothers me about our patriarchy is, and I will blame the men and the women, it's like they're both, like the mothers and the fathers, who, unfortunately, there is some preference, you see that all around and that sort of awareness. So, yes, I think if I was to bring it down to, again, the education from the primary, it's like so important onwards and to all levels. Like it's so important to educate. Now we've talked so much about how you educate a woman, a girl. You're like educating the entire sort of next generation, but particularly work on your boys. I think that's what we're behind on right now. And husbands, okay, let me not forget, like, this is something that I found very strange when I went to Asia. Like every other young couple, the wife is studying abroad and the guy is looking after the kids. It just so happens that he's done his PhD first, for instance, and it's time for the wife, and it's no big deal. Here we can't even conceive of it. It's really we need to question these things, like these mindsets. And best would be like the girls who feel like this, please teach your sons when they're born, teach them now. You bring the change for your next generation.
So, Ms. Tana, is there any concluding thought that you would like to share?
Just when we talk about mindsets, I think just sounds so difficult and easy at the same time just saying it, but I think it starts with language. So I just like to see some difference in the way we talk, the way we say certain things, oh, be a man, come on, stop crying, or stop wailing like a woman, or stop doing this like a woman, or doing that like a man. Let's just stop doing that. And also, oh, I'm going to go out tonight. No, you can't go out because you're a girl, Let's just say, no, you cannot go out because it's too late to go out. Your brother can't go out either, you can't go out either. You can't wear this because it's not appropriate, and you similarly, males cannot wear this because it's not appropriate. Let's just stop making excuses for the gender or the sex to be the reason for us not allowing somebody to do something. No, you can't smoke because it's bad for your lungs. Okay? You can't not smoke because you're a woman. So let's call a bad habit a bad habit. And not just for girls and boys, and just change the way that you shouldn't cry right now because I want you to be strong like that. Not because it has anything to do with who you are biologically or culturally. So dissecting that and taking that away from our language, and then keeping our language more gender neutral. And like I said, we hope to raise a better generation.
Hopefully. So this concludes our fifth episode of PUAN Alumni Voices. I'm really grateful to Ms. Tana and Dr. Feriyal for their time and support in being here with us. And thank you everyone who's watching us live. This episode will be available on our YouTube channel. Stay connected for more inspiring stories like Ms. Tana's and Dr. Feriyal's. Stay connected. We will see you soon. Bye.